Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. Just a tad early, so just to cover a couple administrative things. The stream here will last about an hour and a half, hour and 45. Please feel free to make use of YouTube's chat feature to make sure to answer any questions you may have. We do record these trainings, so if you can't stay for the whole time, you can always come back later to this link and view the whole thing. That also allows you to share the link with any other staff who you may need to make a system admin on your account as well. In fact, you can go back through older trainings right now if you need to get those linked to other people in case you know you have an upcoming meeting that came up. Additionally, you'll see in the description notes, I have several links. The first is a link to our business SMS webinar series, which is basically every 2 weeks on Thursdays. And basically we cover registration. The first one's registration. There's like do's and don'ts, etc. And the next one of those will be not this coming Thursday, but the following Thursday, which would be the 15th. Beyond that, the other ones are covering topics that don't show well up here on my streaming software. And since it's 10 o'clock, let's go ahead and get started. So here you see my Dash login screen, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also get there from the virtualpbx.com website. There's a little blue bar on the top of the page that has a login link there that will take you to this page. I do recommend bookmarking this page so you can always get back here easily if you need to. To get logged in, we need 3 pieces of information. The first is your email address, which should be in all lowercase letters, your password, which is case sensitive, and then your account name, typically your company name, and that is actually not case sensitive. Not sure why all 3 of those are different. If for some reason you have trouble logging in, around here at the bottom is your forgot your info link, which is just above the sign-in bar. You can click on that, it'll flip it around. We still need your email address, right? Should all be in lowercase. That's your unique identifier. Then down here, right here, right? We need one of these 2 pieces of information. We don't need both, right? So we need either the account name, right? So your company name, or a phone number on your account, which is one of your customer-facing phone numbers. You click on the reset password button here. This is gonna generate an email that includes a link that lets you log into your user page to then change your password. Once you navigate away from that page, or once you're done updating your password, it logs you back out, takes you back here. So then you type in that password, and you also have the option here to click on Remember Me, and then you click on Sign In. Oops. Oh, helps have the right email address. Now, this is a test account that I log into several times a week, if not a day. So by default, it's sending me here to my dashboard page. If it's your first time logging in, the system instead takes you to your user account page, right? And I can always get back there, or you can always get back there as well. So up here towards the top, you have your name. You just click on your name, and boom, basically it's a huge pop-up, right? This is your user account page. So this is where I would go if I need to change my password, for instance. I could also change the date time format that I have, as well as my time zone, right? So that way, like, my voicemail timestamps are correct. You also have your actual time zone and your display language. Now, as a system admin over here on the left, I can also click on the account tab. So then at the account level, for instance, I could change time zone and display language. And that would be the default for everyone. If you ever need to change the account name, you actually need to email our billing team, which is just billing@virtualpbx.com. They actually, need to match up everything. Here's your technical contact, so you can add an email address here and phone number. And any changes you make, you always just remember to click on Save Changes. When you are done here, click on the close box over towards the top right. and that will bring you back to your dashboard. One thing I should mention, when you on that first login, the dash wizard will come up. It's going to come up on that account page that we just saw, the user account page. It's also going to come up here on the dashboard page. It will come up on the users tab and the groups tab. So if we look over here on the left, I'm on my dashboard. That's what's highlighted blue at the top. Then I have my main number, account, auto attendance, etc. going down. So these are, for the most part, core dash features. Auto attendance is actually a plan-specific feature, so it's available on some plans and not others. Back here at the top, right? So you have your name, so you can always click on your name to get back to that user account page. For most of you, to the right of your name, you'll have a D&D toggle, right? D&D standing for Do Not Disturb. If you click on it, it'll be white. That means it's active. That means you're not getting calls, right? The calls are being sent to your voicemail, right? If you click it back, so it's basically all black, then you are getting calls. The reason I don't have it is my user is part of the call center, or the ACD queues, and those two features do not work well together. So once I was assigned to be a member of the queues, that D&D toggle was removed automatically. All right, then to the right here, I got the little graduation cap icon. This opens up a new tab, takes you to our support pages, so you can see the various guides that we have written up. They, typically speaking, have screenshots, so we can see where you're going with highlights. Some of them also include videos of that specific feature. Some of you may also have a little phone icon here. That's if you've added a web phone to your user. And when you click on that, it opens up a new tab and takes you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. This allows you to use Chrome or Firefox on a computer to make and receive calls. It is not supported on the mobile versions of those browsers. I don't have it here because I don't currently have a web phone on my user. The little chat bubble icon here, this opens up the chat window so you can speak to our support staff so they can help you with a particular feature. Little 3 horizontal line icon here, it's the menu icon. Sometimes it might be referred to as a hamburger icon, although we've mostly been shifting that to say the menu icon. This takes you to other dash features. We'll touch on most of these to some degree. Others of these I'll have to refer you to links that I have in the description notes, just because, again, sometimes the streaming software doesn't play well with some things. And then here, the little arrow icon to the right, that's the logout. Now here in the middle, I've got total users. I have 23 of them, right? These are people who make and receive calls on my account. Most of our accounts are based on a per user basis, right? So the more users you have, the more you're paying. Total devices, I have 33 and a breakdown. Now, Dash was designed with VoIP phones in mind, first and foremost. And if you don't already know, VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. That just means using your internet connection to make and receive calls. First up here, we have soft phone, software application that acts like a phone. Can be typically on a computer, can be on a cell phone, can be on a tablet. And just you need to have internet connection. Obviously, you need a microphone and speakers or headset or something to actually communicate. This bucket here of soft phones, this includes the VirtualPBX soft phone app, as well as any third-party soft phones, just all together. A cell phone, you can add a cell phone or a landline phone number as a device on your account. And basically that means call comes into your Dash account, we can send it to a cell phone number, right? Your cell phone rings, you can pick up. Now, major thing to keep in mind is once that call gets sent to a cell phone number, you're not gonna be able to transfer that call to anybody else, right? Basically, we send it to a cell phone and that's an endpoint. So you have to handle the call. If the person you're speaking to actually needs to speak to someone else in your organization, they'd actually have to call back in, or you'd have to have the person they need to speak to call them back. A SIP phone, this is a physical phone. Now, SIP is a kind of VoIP phone, right? There are several subtypes out there in the world. So if you're shopping, look for SIP compliant or SIP compatible phones. But generally speaking, a phone that sits on someone's desk plugged in via Ethernet cable to get to your router to get out to the internet. Web phone, this is again that Chrome or Firefox device that you can use your computer to make and receive calls. And then landline, pretty self-explanatory. Unregistered devices, I have 2 of them. That means I have disabled 2 devices under my devices tab. Now, total numbers down here, I have 32 of them. That's a lot for an account of this size. Uh, Generally speaking, our plans include a set number of phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price. If you go over that, you're paying an overage per phone number per month. So if you just signed up for us with us, I believe that's still $1.99 per number per phone per number per month. But double check the pricing page. If you've been with us for a little while and you're not sure, you'd want to contact our account services team. They can verify for you how many phone numbers are included and what the overage is. And that's just account services at virtualpbx.com. Here I've got a breakdown, assigned numbers and spare numbers. Assigned numbers, you're using it, right? Someone can call any assigned number and expect to either speak to someone or leave a voicemail, join a conference, or send a fax, right? Spare numbers counts towards your allotment of phone numbers. You're just not currently using it. Whether that's because it's a phone number that you're expanding to a new office location, in a different city, right? So you're like, okay, we want to get the phone number, so we have it, and then you can start producing any related marketing materials. Or for instance, you had a promotion that just ended, and you want to take that number out, so that way you're not getting calls about something that's no longer running. Next breakdown here, USDID versus US toll-free. US toll-free is US Canada toll-free, right? 800 number, 888, all the way down to 833 currently. And USDID, that just means a local US phone number, right? So if you have a phone number in Elmira, New York, counts as USDID. It's just as if you have one in Miami, Florida. Same thing. You can have international phone numbers on your account if you would like. If you're interested in adding one, you need to email our porting team, and that's porting at virtualpbx.com. They need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a number in, and yes, that does include Canada. Now, some countries have requirements, right? So our porting team will respond to you, yes, we can get a number, and here are the additional requirements. Or they'll say, no, we're not able to get a number, right? Those requirements, that comes from the country in question. We don't control that. And generally speaking, you have to have all those documents submitted before we can attempt to get a number. All right, conference bridges, 7. That means I have enabled the conference bridge feature on 7 of my users, right? So those 7 people can moderate or host a conference. Now I'm going over to towards the top right, where it says main number, and there's these 4 phone numbers here. These 4 phone numbers all behave the same way. They're all going to the same location. They're all going to have the same main greeting. The conference number, right? This is the phone number that everyone dials to join a conference on your account. That includes your staff members, that includes your vendors, your clients, etc. Right? They're all dialing that same phone number. They'll be prompted to enter a conference room number to join. The fax box number, you can only have the one main fax box number. This is your inbound fax number, right? It also allows you to edit your main fax box so you can allow for permissions to send faxes out. All right, then we've got the company directories. There's actually 2 of them here. A CSV file, right, downloads a spreadsheet file. So if you're good with spreadsheet programs, you can get a lot of use out of that. But basically, it just has a list of your staff members' extension numbers, their phones that they use, etc. The soft phone link here, that's for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. And this basically, you download this file, upload it to the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone app, so on Mac or Windows PC. This allows you to see the status of the other VirtualPBX soft phones, on your account. Right? So like if I can see if my colleague Mike is using his VirtualPBX soft phone, so I know not to call him, right, this minute. Now, if my colleague Mike, for instance, has multiple kinds of devices that he uses, I'm not going to be able to see the status of those other devices. All right, VirtualPBX Store, click on the link, and that will take you to store.virtualpbx.com. And there you can order things like a VoIP phone or a router, etc. And then we have the account realm. Account realm. Every account has its own account realm. It's used in a couple things. First, it's used for a third-party soft phone. It's one of the 3 pieces of information you need to get that third-party soft phone to work. The other thing it's used for is for outbound faxing. So if you have set up your fax box for outbound faxing, then what you do, instead of logging into your Dash account to send a fax, you instead go to your email that's associated with your user, create an email like you normally do. In the to field, you put the plus sign, the number 1, area code and phone number you're faxing to, little @ symbol, and then your account realm. Then you just need to attach a PDF or a TIFF file, and you can then send out a fax. Just bear in mind it's 1 document or 1 attachment per email. So if you have any kind of like signature file, you want to make sure as an attachment, you want to make sure to remove that. And again, it's only going to send out a PDF or a TIFF. Okay, going back up here at the top, we have Sandbox Training. To the right, it says Caller ID. You're going to click on that. Opens up a big box. Now, this first pull down, which unfortunately does not show on the streaming software, this allows you to choose any of your main numbers. Right, so those 4 phone numbers to the right, I can choose any one of those to be my main phone number on my account. This means it's a default number for several different features. Most notably, it is for your VoIP phones. Right, by default, when your VoIP phones make an outbound call, it's going to have this phone number as their default caller ID. Next up, you have the company caller ID name field. This is optional. In the box to the right, you can type in 15 characters or up to 15 characters. It does count spaces and special characters in that 15, so please be aware of that. Once that's done, then you would come down here to the company emergency information, or E911. This is what the system would use as its default for your VoIP phones if they dial 911. Right? This is the address that would be transmitted to emergency services. You can set up each phone number on your account to have its own E911 address, which means then you can assign that phone numbers to your VoIP devices specifically for 911 only. Right? So that way, when people are working remotely, you can make sure you have the proper address associated with them. So that way, if they have to call 911, they're not sending people to the wrong address. This is for North American addresses. For our Canadian customers, zip code, just enter your postal code here. And for the state, use your 2-character province abbreviation. Any changes you make, click on Save Changes. Now, for the company caller ID name, once you click on Save Changes, this information gets transmitted to the other carriers who support this feature. It takes them approximately 3 business days to update their databases. In terms of how this feature works, right? When you make an outbound call from your VoIP phone, we'll submit this text as part of your caller ID, right? So that 2 pieces of information get transmitted as part of your call. The phone number and then the CNAM information. Goes through several carriers before it reaches your destination. If any one of those carriers in that chain does not support the CNAM feature, your CNAM does not reach destination. Probably more critical than all of that is that receiving carrier, they get final say about what shows up on the phones in their network. Now, they're going to show the phone number almost always. As far as I know, they always do, as long as they get the valid phone number in the first place. But the name, they can choose to send it through, right? So whatever we send out, though, they may choose to send that through. They may say, no, we're not going to take your name information. We're going to look up your that phone number in our own set of databases and use what we find there instead and send that through. Or just say, no, we're not sending any CNAME information. We're only letting the number go through. That last scenario is typically what happens when you're trying to call a cell phone, right? The cell phone carriers, the vast majority of them, they want to charge their subscribers an additional monthly fee to have that CNAM feature show up for calls that come to their cell phone, right? I know I've run into this with at least AT&T, I believe it was T-Mobile or Verizon. One of those for sure had monthly fees associated with it. I'm pretty sure it's pretty common industry-wide. So bear in mind when you're from your VoIP phones, if you're calling a cell phone customer, that your phone number should get through, but your CNAM information may not. Now, if they already have your phone number programmed to the phone, then something will show up in that case. Hold music here. This is your account default hold music. Now, hold music on the account means once the call has reached your staff member on their VoIP phone, right, they've picked up, they've answered, and then they press hold on their VoIP phone. That's when this file will play. You can upload your own file, .wav.mp3. You want to make sure it's recorded in mono because you can only have a 1 megabyte hold music file, right? So a 1 megabyte MP3 is roughly 5 minutes. All right, but you click on the browse button to find the document or the file on your computer. Click the up arrow icon. Once it finishes uploading, you click on Save Changes. This pull down here, which is probably not going to work here on the streaming software. This will show any media files you currently have on your account. All right, so if you've already uploaded a bunch of media files, then it will show up. And an option here for you. Now, hours is actually part of main number. And before we get into all of main number, I want to go into users and then groups, just because those are destinations you might want to have in terms of setting up your main numbers. So on the left here, we'll go to users. Now, again, on that first login, the dash wizard will pop up here telling you about certain things. On this page, the people with the blue suit icon, these are your system admins. So you can obviously have several. And the gray person icons, these are just your standard users who have very limited access to things. Up here at the top is where you add a new user. It's going to bring up a box here. So in the first name and last name fields, it just needs some sort of text. Then the email address used for login, that is unique to each user. All right, so you cannot reuse an email address for multiple staff people. Then here you would create a password for them. And then the main extension number, right? Their default extension number, typically speaking, most people have only one extension number. This is just giving you a suggestion, right? So this account was started with extension 1000. So it's saying, hey, the next available one is 1006, which means probably that original user was removed. So now that number is available, but you can type in any extension number you want. I typically recommend 4-digit extensions because that gives you the most versatility going forward. By default, this system will create a voicemail box for this user automatically for you. This voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So for instance, if you created this user, you added a VoIP phone to them right away and got registered, they could pick up that phone, dial *98. That logs them directly into this voicemail box that was created for them. The system will then walk them through creating a PIN number for their voicemail box and then recording their name and voicemail box greeting. Right, so then they're basically all set up as far as the voicemail box is concerned. In terms of voicemails, the system uses that email address used for login to communicate with the user. So if they get a voicemail, the system automatically sends them an email saying, hey, you have a voicemail. It gives you, date, time, and an MP3, so you can listen to it directly from voicemail. That's also, the email address used for login is also how the system uses for like password resets. Here's your option to include this person in the company directory or not, right? That's the dial by name directory or smart PBX directory. Put a check mark if you want them there or leave it blank if you don't. You can always change this later. Here you have to send emails to an alternate address. So if you don't want to have those voicemail notifications go to the email address used for login, you can instead click this box here and then add a different email address. Right, so like let's say for whatever reasons, your initial staff person doesn't have a company email, so you use their personal email address for their login, you can then put in like a generic, webmaster at, abccleaners.com in the interim. So that way you can then forward those messages to the correct email address when it comes time. Then lastly down here is the send credentials to the user, right? So this is when you click on create user, for instance, this person would then get an email saying your VirtualPBX account is ready. It'll give them their login information as well as the link to the dashboard. I personally think it's something you should check mark, but sometimes people forget. If you need to add multiple people, you would use the create user and add another. When a user is created, you can click on their name. right? So you can change their name if necessary. Right here, you can change their credentials. So you can change their email address or their password. And then here is a link to send them the password reset email if for some reason they're having problems. Here's your option to change their voicemail box PIN number. Just enter 4 digits and then save changes. Here's your option to send to an alternate address if you want to, right? If you need to do that temporarily. And then here's also the option to be in the user directory or not. Now over to the right, little person icon here. There's a pull down to the right. That's where you can change a user into an admin or an admin to a user. Little clock icon here. This is where you can change the time zone for the user, right? So that way their voicemail timestamps are correct. Little flag icon. This allows you to change the display language of these web pages for this user. You can choose English, French, German, or Russian. Ringing timeout, typically speaking, is 20 seconds. The reason it's grayed out on this user is that Aaron here has the user feature follow me enabled. So that's taking care of the ringing time. 20 seconds, typically plenty of time for a VoIP phone or a landline. If you have a staff member who's only using a cell phone, right, that's their only device, then you would want to increase this to 30 seconds, possibly even up to 45. And then you have the main extension and the default privacy. The extension box, you can add additional extensions if you want to. As I said, most people only need one. Phone numbers, you can add either from spare numbers or buy new numbers, right? So spare numbers means you're reusing a phone number, right? You're taking it from the spare category and assigning it, right? So I can have multiple phone numbers here to Aaron. Buy numbers means you're adding new numbers to the account. Now, if you haven't reached your account allotment, it's not going to charge you, right? But once you do go over it, then it will. So adding from spare, it's pretty easy. You click on the link here, click on the box in front of the number, click on add selected, and then you would click on save changes, and then that number would then be part with Aaron. Buy numbers, you have your options for local and toll free. Toll free, right? 800 number, 888, etc. You choose the toll free prefix that you want to work with and click on search. And then you'll be given a list of phone numbers to work with. You can click add. You can add multiple if you wanted to, for instance. And then you would click on buy numbers. Now, if I just left them in the cart and like walked away, I haven't reserved the numbers, right? You have to actually click that add numbers or buy numbers button to actually get them added to your account. So this is the system verifying that those numbers were truly available and then adding them to the account. You're actually competing with other people in real time, technically. Very rarely have I encountered a customer who is in this process and didn't go through. That's kind of weird. Let's click on save changes for a second here. Huh. Interesting. I'll have to figure out why that happened. For local numbers, you need to know the area code that you want to work with, right? So you enter the area code, you click on search, and it's possible, even on the toll-free numbers, you can get this kind of message saying that there's no numbers readily available. In the case of local numbers, what you would want to do is go to your favorite search engine and type in, area code 310 overlay, right? So 310 is in Los Angeles area code. So and I know there's an overlay for that, which is 424. So you would do a search then for that second, or even several metropolitan areas have 3 or 4 area codes, but then you can add those additional numbers. Same process, just click add and then click buy, and we'll make sure hopefully this one goes all the way through. Otherwise, this account is having an issue. There we go. It should look like this, and then you want to click save changes. Now, let's say, for instance, oh, wait, I didn't want to add that phone number to Aaron, right? That was, I brain farted, right? I can click unassign and save changes. Now, all unassigning does is move it to be a spare number. I haven't removed it from the account. I'll have to go to the numbers tab a little bit, which we'll get to a little bit later, to actually remove the account. Under devices, you can add from spare, which basically means you're reusing a device, or you can add a new device. So first up is SIP phone. That's that hardware phone. You have these manufacturers to choose from. Some have several models, right? Some do not. So obviously, if you're shopping, you can go by this list. This should also be a page on our website, if not the support pages. Anyway, you find the make and model of the phone you want to work with, and then down here, you need to give it a name, right? I normally say, use the person's name and the word phone, right? So Bob's phone, right? Or its location, right? Like warehouse phone. Then you have the MAC address. This is a unique alphanumeric set of code, basically. Typically a sticker on the back of the phone. If the phone's plugged in, if you go under its status, it should show up there as well. And then you click on Create Device. Now, once the device is created, here we'll go down to Bob. All right, this is what it should look like. Then, well, you can obviously have your own device name. After this, you want to go to the advanced settings here and then select miscellaneous. And then right here, where it says allow reprovision, click unlock and then save changes. And you probably have to click save changes here as well. That tells our system that, hey, this phone's going to be ready to be provisioned. Now, as far as our dashboard's concerned, you're done. However, you need to log into that phone's web user interface, right? Get the IP address, put that IP address in your web browser on a computer that's on that same network as that phone, and then log into the phone's interface. And basically, you're telling it the phone, you can go look for the auto provisioning section of the phone, and giving it a URL, saying, hey, go here to get your config file. Now, for the specifics of that, you'd want to go up here to the little graduation cap icon and do a search for auto provisioning. It's going to get you to a document that has all those manufacturers up there, their screenshots and the proper syntax for that URL, and in some cases, some other settings just to verify. Once you go through that, the phone's going to reboot a couple times, typically 2 to 3 times. And then after that, it should show up as a green device, right? Green means it's registered. Red means it's not registered, and we can't send calls to it. All right. Actually, here we'll go to. So next up is cell phone. Right, so you give it a name and then you put the number, right? Specifically +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. And then you click on Create Device and then Save Changes. We click on this one here. You see this is what it should look like. If you go to Advanced Options, and actually like this, right? This current setup here, right? So the top one unchecked, the bottom 2 checked. That's the default settings for both cell phones and landlines. So in terms of how the system handles this, right? Call comes in, it's going to your user, it's ringing your cell phone. When you pick up that call on your cell phone, your first thing you're going to hear is, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take this call. Right, so that's an audio clue to know, oh, this is a business call versus, a random telemarketer. That works great for people who are actually there to answer the call, right? But let's say, for instance, you've contracted out with an automated answering service to handle your calls after hours, right? So they gave you a phone number saying, hey, just send your calls here. We'll handle all your calls that come in to this phone number. So you would add it as a cell phone or a landline on your Dash account with us. But what you would want to do is put a check mark here in front of allow use of cell phone's voicemail, right? So what this does is now when we send the call to that phone number, when we hear that pickup tone, we're connecting the call. There's no message about pressing 1. There's no need to press 1. It just says, hey, we hear pickup tone, call connected. Now, if this is really your cell phone and you have this checked, what can happen is your cell phone voicemail can pick up. That's still a pickup tone. So that inbound caller can end up on your personal cell phone's voicemail box instead of the Dash voicemail box. Some people want that, some people don't. The other thing that can come up is this one here, keep original caller ID. So customer Mary calls in, goes out to your cell phone. On your cell phone, you see customer Mary's phone number. Maybe you don't recognize it, right? Or you've been hit with so many telemarketers or political ads or whatever. You're like, I don't recognize the number, not answering. What you can do instead, right? Because then you might miss a sale, for instance. You can uncheck this, right? Click on Save Changes. So instead of seeing customer Mary's phone number, we go back to the dashboard here. On your cell phone, instead you see this phone number that's selected up here at the top, right? So this 42 phone number shows up on your cell phone's display. Hopefully you would recognize your company number and then be willing to pick it up. Okay, so next up, new device, soft phone. For any soft phone or web phone you add to the account, you're going to get this little warning message, right? Basically saying there's a such thing as wireless VoIP technology, and for E911 purposes, you may not be at this physical location that's associated with this device. So please read at least once. I try to remember to read it every now and then. But click close, and then you're going to get this big box here. Now, this right here is for adding a third-party soft phone. Right? That means you're using someone else's soft phone application, not the VirtualPBX soft phone app. If you want to use the VirtualPBX soft phone app, then down here below where it says View Configuration Guide, right? It's grayed out. It's kind of hard to read, but it says Use Third-Party Application. You can click on that. So now it says Use VirtualPBX application. You just give it a device name. You click on Create Device, and then you click on Save Changes. Once you click on Save Changes, Ariel here gets an email with the login information for their soft phone, as well as download links for the soft phone. So very realistically, right, early on as you're adding users, right, they'll have a login email. They can also get a soft phone email. If you try to add the soft phone on the Devices tab over here on the left, that's only going to allow you to add a third-party soft phone. So if you want to make use of the VirtualPBX soft phone app, you need to add it directly to the user in question. The other thing that web phone, so the web phone uses your dash login information, right? So if you go to webphone.virtualpbx.net, it's going to have a login page right there. Uses your email address, uses your same dash login password, and the account name. So in that instance, it makes a lot more sense to add the web phone directly to a user because it needs to have that login information to be associated with. So you just give it a name, click on Create Device, and then click on Save Changes. And then Ariel could go to the webphone.virtualpbx.net and log in via Chrome or Firefox. All right, user features. First one is caller ID number. This basically only works if the user has their own phone number assigned to them. You just click on, you select that phone number, and then you click on Save Changes. What this does is when it's enabled, whenever Ariel makes an outbound call from a VoIP phone, his outbound caller ID becomes his phone number that's been assigned to him instead of the main number. Right? Since I left it disabled, whenever he makes an outbound call on a VoIP phone, it's going to be that 424 phone number that we saw back on the dashboard page. All right, virtual text application. This is a relatively new feature. Basically, you would click on it, you click to enable, and then you select a phone number that's on the account, typically assigned to the user, a main number or auto attendant number, and then you click on Save Changes. This enables them to send texts in and out from that particular number. The virtual text feature, the main advantage is you can share a number among multiple staff members, right? So like your main number, you can share among all your staff. So that way you always know that there's people ready to respond to texts that are coming in or send texts out. Now, if you don't see this feature immediately on your account, you want to talk to our account services team. For texting purposes, there's also what's referred to as SMS registration. There's that link in the description notes for the SMS webinar series. The first one in that series is for registration purposes. But in terms of getting the feature enabled, the account services team is the group that has to enable that on your account. but they also talk to you about the SMS registration as well. Voicemail box. Oh, so one thing I should point out for brand new accounts, right? Your one user was automatically created on your account, but that user did not have an extension number assigned to it, right? Basically, we want to give you the opportunity to establish whatever extension numbering sequence you want to use. So for that first user, right, which would be an admin, you would come here to the extension number box and then click add new extension and then enter that extension number and then save changes. That then allows you to come, oops, go over here to Arial, to then enable your voicemail feature on that first user. Right? Any additional user you create out after them will automatically have the voicemail box created because you also create an extension number for that user. Now, by default, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they are full and cannot accept any more. And by default, the system will send them an email with like the call details, right? The date, the time, phone numbers involved, the extension number involved, and will include an MP3 attachment, right? So you can just double click and listen to your voicemail that way. Now, that doesn't delete the voicemail from the system, right? So the voicemail still stands on the voicemail box. So this default settings here, right? You have three ways to listen to messages, right? One being email, the second way being calling in, right? You can call into your main number or from a VoIP phone, just pick up and dial *98, log in directly to your voicemail box. That lets you listen to it over the phone. You can also delete messages over the phone. And then the third way you can check voicemails is via the website, right? Go to dash.virtualpbx.com, go to your user portal, and it's going to default you to your voicemail tab, where you can listen to it directly from your browser, download them, as well as delete them. Now, if you have a voicemail box that's extremely busy, right? Let's say you have you make use of the main voicemail box to a group that's for like your front office staff, right? So call comes in, hopefully your staff can answer it, but they're busy. A lot of calls end up getting to voicemail. That's probably a voicemail box that may not be easy for someone to go into check manually and delete the messages, right? And you don't want that to get full because then your customers start getting a little worried. So in that instance, right here, you can put a check mark here and put delete the messages after that email notification goes out. Right? So basically that means voicemail messages left, system sends email to the recipients or recipient or multiple staff members, right? And once that email gets sent out, the system then deletes the voicemail from the voicemail box. That way it doesn't become full. Transcription, if you turn this on, that means the system listens into the voicemail and types it out in that notification email to the best of its ability. If people are not speaking into their microphone properly, or they have an older mic that doesn't have noise canceling, so it's picking up a lot of background noise, that's going to have an impact on the quality of that transcription. All right, follow me is typically best for users with multiple devices, and in this case, this wouldn't work. You'd actually want to have it start at 0 and then save changes. Let's go to someone who's got multiple devices here. All right, so we'll go here because we got 3. So we'll enable it here. All right, click enable. So it starts off like this. Basically, the system wants you to tell it which phones do you want to make use of, because I have 3. So where it says do not ring, all right, you want to uncheck those boxes. Now, it starts them all off at 0 seconds. Up here at the top is the timestamps. This last one you can edit, right? It typically defaults to 120, right? 2 seconds, or 2 minutes, excuse me. But right now, they're only going to ring for 0 seconds, right? So they might get 1 ring. You can click and drag to increase the ring time, right? So in this case, they're all ringing at the very beginning until when I pick up on one of these calls. Now, I can click distribute. So now it's always going to ring my soft phone here first, then the cell phone, and then this Obahai device. If I want to change this order, though, I can click and drag, do something like that, then click distribute again. So now it's going to this physical device first, then my soft phone, and then finally my cell phone. If I think that's too long, like I don't have people waiting 2 minutes to try to either speak to me or leave a voicemail. I take 60 up here in this box, and then I click distribute again, so it equalizes out. But these are sliders, so I can adjust it so I have more overlap, right, if necessary. And then whatever changes you make, you just click on Save Changes. One thing to keep in mind about the follow me settings is that if this user is part of a group, calls from the group ignore the follow me settings. Right? They just ring them all at once. All right, then fax box. You can choose to have users have their own fax box. You would click enable, and then you have the option to select a spare number, buy a new number, or use an extension. Now, I recommend making use of a phone number. This gives maximum versatility for your staff member. Right? With a phone number, they can send and receive faxes. If you choose to assign them a separate extension for their fax box, they can only ever receive a fax. And even then, you're probably limiting who can send them a fax. Right? So like electronic fax services may or may not allow for sending faxes to an extension number. The ones I have played around with, I'll just say enter a phone number and that's it. There's no provision to add an extension number or no instructions for it. Also, when they try to send out, if they have an extension number only, that's what the system uses for the outbound caller ID, right? So like a 3 or 4 digit extension, not long enough as a phone number, so it fails. Beyond that, PDF or TIFF file. Conference bridge, right? So up here at the top, you click to enable, and then you need to give them a PIN number, which the user can change on their user portal, and then click on Save Changes. The enable video conferencing is for in-house use, right? So if you have it enabled, that means other Dash users can make use of video conferencing, but anyone outside of your account who calls in to the conference room, not going to be able to make use of it. All right, call forwarding, you have off, on, or failover mode. Your staff members can enable call forwarding on their own and disable it on their own, right? They can either do that on their user portal or from a VoIP phone directly. Failover mode is something you as an admin would have to set up for them. And what this is if their VoIP phone becomes unregistered, right? Let's say the dog ran by, cable got ripped out, right? Phone's on the floor, call comes into this user at that time, right? Before they even had a chance to try to pick up the phone and plug things back in. Then when you have failover mode, calls come in would go to this phone number that you forwarded to, right? Now, this is an odd looking phone number, but it should be +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. If you allow the leave voicemails on a forwarded number, that means they don't have to press 1 to accept the call. Enable direct calls only, right? That means only people who entered their extension number or transferred to them directly. All right, customize call recording. So you can click enable, it looks like this. Now at this point, you're not actually recording anything, right? You need to tell the system what kind of calls you want to record, right? Inbound internal, that's a coworker call, right? Coworker Bob called Ariel. You can choose to record that. You can leave it as is, as off, right? Inbound external, customer Mary called, right? Most people tend to want to record that, right? Outbound internal, right? Ariel called coworker Bob back, right? And then outbound external, Ariel called customer Mary back. So often we see something like this where they want the external calls recorded or they just want all of the calls recorded. And then you'll click on Save Changes. Now, your account includes some amount of data storage as part of your monthly plan price. If you have heavy call volume and you're recording every call, you're going to want to talk to our account services team about AWS storage. Specifically, on your Dash account, you can enable AWS integration. This allows you to link your Dash account to your own AWS account where you can store your call recordings there, right? At high volumes, typically it's more cost effective to go with that than through us. If you just signed up with us, you can go to the pricing page and they should have the information there for how much storage you get and what any overages are related to that. Music on hold, you can have your staff members have their own hold music, right? You would just click to enable. You can use the pull down to find an existing file on the account, or you can upload a new one. .wave.mp3 recorded in mono under 1 megabyte, and then save changes, right? And again, this is when that person press hold on their VoIP phone. That's when the file will play. So for instance, if you wanted your sales staff to have their own hold music, right, talking about special promotions that you have running, you could do that, whereas your other staff may have just generic hold music. Do not disturb. If you enable this, that means calls to this user are not going to ring their phones, right? They're going to go to voicemail. Now, if they're in a group, you may want to make sure you adjust the group call timing, which we'll get to shortly. Hot desking is a VoIP phone feature. When you click enable, you need to give them a hot desk ID, right? Typically, I say if you're making use of 4-digit extensions, make it their extension number, since that's easier to remember. And then here you can choose if you're going to make them use a PIN number. So this is for a shared office environment or a hybrid scheduling, right? So we say, I think I'm on Ariel still, right? Ariel comes to the office on Tuesday, sits down at desk number 2, picks up the VoIP phone that's there, hits *11, right? That turns on hot desking on that phone. He enters his hot desk ID. The system then tells him calls to his user will now be sent to this device. Rest of his workday, any calls that's coming to him, rings out the phone he's sitting at. End of his workday, picks up the phone, *12 to turn off hot desking. And then he goes about his day, right? Next time he comes into the office, someone's already at desk number 2, so he sits down at desk number 7. Same thing. Let's pick up the phone, *11, hot desk ID, and then takes calls. All right, so then we'll go over to groups. Groups are departments, right? You're designed to send calls to multiple people at the same time or in order. So up here at the top, you click on Add Group. You need to give it a name. You need to give it an extension number, right? Then you click and drag your staff members that you want to be in the group. And then you click on Create Group. Once a group is created, you can click on the name here, right? You can always change the name, right? If you don't need a group anymore, you have the option to delete it. Then here you've got group call attempts. This is how many times the system will offer the call to the members of the group. Little arrows here at the far right, so you can increase it or decrease it, and then save changes. The next box over, right, the members box, I got 5 in this particular group. And here you see I have a setup called blast ringing or ring all, right? Call comes in, it's ringing all 5 people at the same time until one of them picks up, right? So whoever gets the call, answers first gets the call. Now, in this kind of setup, what can happen is call comes in, and let's say Bob picks up first, right? Or let's say Bob and Michael, right? Both pick up the call, right? So they both think they have it, right? The system has to decide which one gets it. So let's say Bob gets the call, right? Michael will hear dead air. Now, if you're in the same office building, right, that's pretty easy to hear or check, right? You say, oh, okay, Bob got the call, not a big deal. If you're working remotely, you might have to do some sort of, confirmation with your staff member saying, like, who got that call, right? And you also check it in the call log once the call has been completed. Now, up here at the top, you got timestamps, right? Defaults to 120 seconds. I can click distribute, right? So now it's going to ring in this order. Now, every time a call comes in, though, it always rings in this order. It's not going to skip Bob, for instance, if he's already on a group call. Right, so first call comes in, Bob answers, he's helping it. Second call comes in, Bob might hear call waiting beep on his phone if that's enabled on the phone itself. Right, but the inbound caller is either hearing ringing sounds or like hold music. All right, up, and then after 24 seconds, then Aaron's phone will start ringing. Right, so then 2 calls come in, third one calls in. That third caller has to wait 48 seconds before it's offered to David. Now, again, these are sliders. Oops. So you can adjust it so it's not quite as a long hold for additional callers. Right, now if like Bob has a special project and you want him at the end, right, you click and drag, move him to the bottom, click distribute, right? This is just like the follow me settings under the groups, or under the user, excuse me. And as a reminder, right, if a user has the follow me setting enabled, calls from the group will ignore it, right? So all like I believe like David has 3 phones, right? All 3 of them will ring at the same time until he answers or someone else answers. If I need to remove a staff member, I got the remove button here over on the far right. Down here at the bottom left, this is where I can add additional staff. Right, so if I have, it's like if the group's starting to get busy or it's, it's our busy season, right? I can click and add more people. And by default, they all start at 0 to 20, but then I can click distribute. Now here it's only 18 seconds, so that might, or is it, yeah, 15 seconds. So if someone's using primarily a cell phone, that may not be long enough. So for instance, let's say for right now, David's only using his cell phone. I'd probably want to increase his call range this time just to give him a better chance of answering the call. Any changes you make, click on Save Changes or cancel if you don't want to save. Extensions can have groups can have multiple extension numbers if you want to. Again, I don't know too many reasons why you would. Groups can also have their own phone numbers, right? Add from spare, by new. So when you assign a phone number to a group, a user, or a call queue, right? Calls in the call center, those phone numbers are available 24/7. Right? They don't have hours of operation, so something to be aware of. Also, when you anywhere you have a phone number, you have this little gear icon here. So this is where you can adjust caller ID, right? So you can update the CNAM information here and turn on the ability to accept inbound CNAM, E911, so you can have that individual address for each phone number. Prepend is for your VoIP phone users. You can add text in front of the caller ID that shows up on calls from this phone number. Although a phone call prepend on a phone number that's assigned to a group is not strictly necessary, because if we go to group features, one of those features is right here, is caller ID prepend. So for any calls that come into the group, you can have additional text or numbers that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones. It gives them an idea what the call is about. You don't want to do both of those. You do want to do one or the other. I'll go up here to the top, ring back. So by default, call comes in the group, right? Your staff members' phones start to ring. That ringing sound is piped back to that inbound caller, right? Ring back. Now, if you don't want that sound, and instead you'd want something else to play, you would enable this feature and upload .wave.mp3 under 1 megabyte, probably recorded in mono, or choose from an existing file. So in this case, when people are calling this group, they're going to hear "Don't worry, be happy" until my staff members call up or pick up. The other thing to be aware of is you want this file to match at least match, or if not exceed, the total ring time of the group, right? So this group is set to 120 seconds. I wouldn't want this file to be only 100 seconds long, right? I want to make sure it's at least 120 seconds because the system will not loop it automatically for you. Next action, if no one picks up, what do you want to do, right? So first you enable, and then here it says, hey, okay, no one picked up the call. Where do you want to send the call? So pull down here, you can send it back to your main virtual receptionist. You can send it to a call queue, right? If you're making use of the queues, specific device, right? Specific phone. Scrolling down, you can send it to a different group. You can send it to a specific person, right? Specific staff member. But probably the most common is sending it to a specific voicemail box. So that way the inbound caller can leave a message. And then the last feature is allow call forward. Basically, if you enable this, that means your staff members can make use of call forwarding. Now, if your staff members all have multiple devices, you don't really need this, especially if one of those devices is a cell phone. Right? This is basically for people or in situations where your staff members only use VoIP phones and they're going to be away from it. Right? They're going to be away from their desk because they're at a customer site, but they still want to you still want them to be able to take calls from the group so they can enable forwarding on their own to send calls to their cell phone. But if you already have their cell phone as a device on their user, not necessary. All right, so we have users and groups, which are your primary destinations. So let's go to main number. So up here, main company numbers, you can add from spare or by new. just like we saw before. You got the little gear icon here to update caller ID, E911, and prepend. Office hours strategy. You can be open 24/7, or you can have custom office hours. If you choose custom office hours for each day of the week you're open, put a check mark in front of that day, and then set your open hours in 24-hour or military time. Down here towards the bottom, if you want your system to go on lunch mode at the same time every day, that for the days that you're open, put a check mark here, and then put your lunch hours in 24-hour or military time, and then click on Save Changes. Office holidays. If you're closed for holidays, put a check mark here, and then over here on the right-hand side, you have the option here to click on Add Holidays. You have single day, date range, and advanced. Each one of these creates a new row. Oh, so single day, like I have here for New Year's Day. So I give it a name. I choose the month and the date. I click on Save Changes. If I want to remove it, I click on the little trash icon and then Save Changes. Date range, like I have here for Christmas holiday. Again, give it a name. Start date, end date, then Save Changes. As a precaution, we recommend against having a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. It hasn't been a problem for I don't even know how long anymore, but it did come up once, like very early on in Dash. Thanksgiving, this is for advanced, right? So I give it a name, I choose the month, and then in this middle pull down, I choose 1st through 5th, as well as last, and then the day of the week, right? And then Save Changes. Incoming call handling. So here, this is for my main numbers, right? How am I handling calls that come in on my main numbers during my open hours? What am I doing for my lunch hours, after hours, or holidays? Now, if I go back to office hours strategy, actually, right, I uncheck am I closed for lunch? We come back to incoming call handling. You see now that I don't have a lunch hours tab any longer, right? Likewise, if you choose, instead of being custom office hours, you're just open 24 hours, we just have an open hours tab. Now, these first 3 options down here in these big boxes will always show up. The 4th one is special cases. So here, calls come in during my open hours. They're going to my virtual receptionist. This is a link. Opens up this big box. So here on the left is my main menu. This is where I can set up what people press on their phone to navigate through my phone system, right? So when they press 0, they're going to my front desk group. If they press 1, they can leave a voicemail message. Press 2, they're going to this other group. I can click down here where it says Add Route and choose 0 through 9 plus the star key, as well as this default action, and then other locations on the account. Here, go to this other one here. All right, you can go to your smart PBX directory, right? Dial by name directory. Go any users you have on the account. So you need to have your users here in place before you add them as an option, right? If they're not a user already on the account, you can't add them here yet. That's why I went to users and groups first, because the same would apply to groups. Call queues. This would be if you're making use of the call center feature, then your queues would show up as an option here as well. Then you got your groups options. You have your devices. So any devices you've added, you can send a menu option specifically to that device. Not always recommended unless that device has its own built-in voicemail. And then you also have the option to any voicemail box. And then lastly, you can also have a media file play. Once the media file is done playing, though, the call ends. So sometimes dealt with for like hours of operation or directions. Now over on the right, you have your greeting options. First up is text-to-speech, right? So you can type in a greeting, click update, save changes, and the system will read it back, right? It's a computerized robotic voice. Not a bad idea to start off with if you're testing, right? Or you're getting used to how our system works. Or if you've never used a PBX system, right? You just want to get your feet wet a little bit. Now, text-to-speech greetings, there's no charge for. However, this box here, you're limited to 250 characters, not words. It does not count spaces, so you have a little bit of little leeway there. 250 works consistently. I have sometimes gotten greetings up to like 300 or 325, but it's not been consistent. But 250 has always worked. You can come here and go upload your own file, right? Find the file on your computer, right? .wave, .mp3, under 1 megabyte. Probably want to record in mono. Then you click update, save, and save changes. Oh, I forgot something. For text to speech, so let's say you created one and you missed something, or it didn't, you're like, oh, that didn't sound quite right, whatever. Right? You come back here and you edit the existing text, right? So I add some text, I click update, and then save and save changes. This creates a second file, but both files will have the same name, right? So I'll have two files called main open hours menu TTS. From any of the pull down sections, that's going to be confusing. So what I recommend is after you create a text to speech greeting, right? So you click update, save, right? You click save changes here. On the left, you'd want to go to greetings and find that file. Click on the little wrench icon and then rename it to something you'll recognize, right? And then save changes. That way you don't have like 7 main open hours menu TTS files and you don't know which one is which until you listen to them. Let's get back here. You can choose from existing recordings, right? So this is a pull down, right? So I have a main open hours menu TTS. Now I added -keep, right? So I know that this is the one I want to keep using. But from the pull down, which unfortunately the streaming software doesn't show, if you had like 7 of them, you'd have 7 in a row. And you're like, I don't know which one's which. You can record it over the phone. Now, by default, the system wants you to use a VoIP phone that's on this account. You would call into your main number and enter this PIN number. Now, if you just signed up with us, right, and if you called your main number right off the bat, you would hear a message saying that the greeting for this menu has not been recorded yet. It will then prompt you for the PIN number. Now, if you're calling from a VoIP phone on the account, it will then you enter that PIN number, will then walk you through recording that greeting. If you have an existing file there, so let's say you started off with text to speech, right? And you're like, okay, that doesn't sound right. I'm going to use my own voice because I don't want it to sound like a robot, right? So you can call in, again, from a VoIP phone, enter that PIN number, or call in from your VoIP phone, right? You'll hear that greeting start playing. You can enter the PIN number at any time. The system will recognize it and then walk you through recording the greeting over the phone. In either case, right, whether there was a greeting in place or not, the system doesn't allow you to name the file. So if there was nothing in place, it just names it for you. It's basically an alphanumeric string. Or in the case of main open hours menu TTS, right, it would still say main open hours menu TTS, but the source would change from text to speech to recording, right? And you would see that under the greetings tab. Now, let's say you don't have a VoIP phone on the account. Let's say you ordered one, it hasn't shown up yet, what have you, but you want to get the greeting in place. So what you would want to do, like if you want to call from your cell phone or landline, down here under settings, right, and then allow outside recording, turn this on, right, then save changes. What that does is now the system has not restricted you to just use the VoIP phone. You can call in from an outside phone number, enter in this PIN number, and then record the greeting over the phone. Right? This is a security feature because if you have a VoIP phone on the account, it's tied to the account intrinsically, whereas random phone number is not. You can also go order a professional greeting. You would just click this order button here. This opens up a new tab and takes you to Snap Recordings. They bill you directly, right? Typically via credit card. They email you the completed file. So then you would just upload the file here, right? Save changes. All right, so settings, number of retries on this dial. This is how many times the inbound caller can make a mistake, right? So they called in and let's say they pressed number 7. Well, that's not currently a menu option here. And if I don't have anything that has extension number 7, that's a misdial. So then system would then replay the main greeting and let them make a second attempt in this case. Right, now, if they messed up again, then the system would say, we did not recognize your entry and goodbye, right? If I click add route and I leave, let's say I leave this as a default action, on that second failed attempt, right, the system would say transferring your call and then send them to the directory so they can try to find the person they want to speak to. If I remove that, then I get that message saying, hey, we don't recognize your entry, goodbye. Dialing timeout, this is how much time the system listens for an additional button press. Right? So that caller called in and pressed 7, the system waits 5 seconds, essentially, to see if there's additional button presses, right? So like, 7112, right? After each digit, the system will wait 5 seconds for that person to complete. After that 5-second timer is hit, then it tries to transfer the call. If it's a valid extension. If not, it tells them that's an invalid entry. Here, allow dialing extensions. By default, this is on, and that just means if the inbound caller enters a valid extension number, the system transfers the call. Right? If I turn this off, right, click save and save changes, that means my inbound callers can only press these menu options. Anything else is an invalid option. And then down here, I have the suppress the playing of invalid entry. So if I don't want that message to play saying we did not recognize your entry, I can turn this on. So now that message will not play. So any changes you make to your menu, your greetings, or your settings, you click save here. You also need to click save changes here under incoming call handling. All right, so the second option, which I have set up for my after hours, it's referred to as the live operator answer option, right? It's basically designed to give a staff member, or in this case, multiple staff members, a chance to answer the call. If they can't, then the system sends a call to the virtual receptionist. Now, this is a pull down, right? So I don't know why you would send it to directory, but you can send it to a specific user. You can send it to a call queue or group, or even a device. But basically choose where you want it to go. And if they can't pick up, then it goes to my virtual receptionist. Now, this is my after hours menu. So I have different menu options here, and I have a different greeting in place. Right? So you can have totally different settings and options. And then this third option here, again, pull down. You can select users, groups, queues, devices, media file, whichever you want. The last option, which is what it's currently set on, is this one here, skip the voicemail. And then here, I choose whatever voicemail box I want the calls to go to, and then save changes. Right? So this is for my holidays, right? So, hey, everyone, we're taking a week off, right, for whatever holiday. I just send it to this, and this, hey, skip the voicemail. Hey, we weren't able to take your call. Please leave a message. We'll return to you next business day. Or I can have it go to, say, a specific media file. Right, where I'm saying, hey, we're closed for whatever holiday. We'll be transferring directly to a voicemail box. Please leave a message. And then I could click on Save Changes. Main conference number. You can have multiple conference room numbers if you want to, but they're all going to the same set of conference rooms. Again, this is a phone number everyone dials to reach your conferences, right? Staff members, customers, vendors, etc. Once you have a phone number in place, you would click the custom greeting. If you want to, you can enable it. It's a text-to-speech greeting. Even if you leave this disabled, the system will say, welcome to the conference, and prompt the inbound caller to enter the conference room number and then PIN number. The main fax box number, you can only have one main fax box number. Once you have one assigned, right here, you can click Edit Fax Box. First up is the inbound notification email, right? Designed to put an email address in here. You can put multiple separated just by comma, right? So .com, and then comma, and then the next email address, no spaces. Right, but basically every time a fax comes in, this person or people get an email saying, hey, a new fax was received. Here's the date, the time, phone numbers involved, and here's a PDF attachment, right? So they can just click on it and look at it. Now, if someone dials your fax box number and hangs up, Right? So it's like someone dials it from their cell phone. This person going to get an email saying, hey, there was a failed inbound fax attempt, right? Gives you the date, the time, and phone numbers involved. Now, if it's a number you recognize that you're supposed to get faxes from, right, you'd want to reach out to that person and find out what happened or ask them to resend. But yeah, just getting the failed fax notifications by itself doesn't mean there's a problem with faxing. We can test for you, that's fine, but just something to be aware of. All right, email permissions, this is for outbound faxing. This is designed to put in your company's email domain, right? So what I'm saying here is everyone at VirtualPBX can send a fax out on this account, even if they're not a user on this specific account, right? They just need to create an email using the virtualpbx.com email address, in the to field +1 area code and phone number, @ they need the account realm for this account, but then they need to just attach a PDF or TIFF file and click send. All right, auto attendants are a plan-specific feature, basically available on some plans and not others. A couple use cases. One is for submenuing, right? So you want people to call your main number, and then they have the option to choose like 1 for English, 2 for Spanish, say 3 for Chinese, right? Then you would create a English, Spanish, and Chinese auto attendant, right? Each one of those would have a greeting in the appropriate language, and then send callers to staff members who speak the appropriate language. The other use case is for people who have multiple businesses, right? So these businesses have their own phone numbers, their own main greetings. Now, you can have the same staff members be answering calls for them. They can have separate staff even. Up to you. But all those staff members would be users on the same account. Up here at the top, you would click on Add Auto Attendant. You give it a name. You give it an extension number, right? The extension number, probably not something any of your customers would ever know, but your staff members would have access to it, so they could transfer people to the appropriate auto attendant, right? So for instance, if a Spanish-speaking customer came in, got to me, right? I understand a little bit of Spanish. I can barely speak any. So I would basically, hopefully they understand when I ask them to hold, and now I would transfer them to my Spanish auto attendant so they can find the correct person to speak to. Now, when you first create an attendant, oops, wrong one. It's going to look like this, right? It'll have its name, and it's going to start off as unavailable in main menu. And that means it's a standalone attendant, right? Designed specifically, generally speaking, to be for a separate business. Now I can click on this, and now it's available in main menu after I click on Save Changes, right? So that means it's a menu option off of my main number, or anywhere, basically, that has a pull down for a location. Right? Auto attendants can have their own phone numbers, right? So you can buy new or add from spare. You have the little gear icon here, so you can update these settings. They can have multiple phone numbers if you want them to. Again, they have their own extension numbers. I don't know why you would need multiple. I imagine we have customers who do. And then you have the little wrench icon here under settings. And you have open hours, after hours, and holidays, right? This is going to match what we set up under your main number, right? The incoming call, the hours of operation, right? The holidays, right? So your phone numbers under your main number and under your auto attendants, right? They have hours of operation, right? So they work differently depending on the time of day. If this is something you're interested in and it's not on your account, you definitely want to reach out to our account services team and see about updating your plan. Devices tab shows all your devices on the account. Right? Black means you have turned it off under the enable section. Red means it's unregistered. So in the case like of a web phone or a soft phone, that could be that they simply haven't logged into the device yet. Now, it can also be they're having an internet problem of some sort, or possibly like a network setting problem. For a physical hardware, like down here I have on this Yealing phone, right? If it's red, right, they don't necessarily have to log in, right? It could be it's not plugged in, or it hasn't been set up yet, or a network issue of some type. You can add devices here, right? So phone, etc. Now, the downside of adding anything on this page is you can't assign it to a user directly, right? It's just a spare device at that point. And the main thing is for the soft phone, you still get that warning message, but if you right below the configuration guide, there's no toggle to make it a virtual PBX soft phone. So under the settings, right, you have a little wrench icon under edit. So for third-party soft phones, right, you would copy and paste the SIP username, click on the SIP password box, copy and paste that, and copy and paste the realm. And that's what the three pieces of information you would need to program or provision your third-party software. Under advanced audio, for our soft phones that use Opus, for hardware, you want to make sure you have G711A and G711U. You can keep Opus if you want, but typically not needed. So if this soft phone was actually for like a Sagoma phone, right? So it's not one of the main manufacturers that we have listed under the SIP phone, right? Someone could use this information to program that device. Restrictions, right? So you can restrict where your staff is calling. External caller ID, you can set up one of your phone numbers as this phone's specific outbound caller ID instead of your main number. Emergency caller ID, you again set this particular phone number and address that's associated with that phone number, right, for this device. So that way, when they call 911, that's the address that gets sent to emergency services. And that is about it there. The greetings manager, right, shows all your media files on the account. Main greetings, voicemail greetings, hold music files. Up here at the top, you can add new ones, right? You can give it a name here, and you can find the file on your computer, right? .mp3, .wave, under 1 megabyte. Click on create greeting. It will upload it here, but it will not allow you to assign it here. You have to go to the specific location to assign it. Right? You see the name of the file, and then you see the source, right? Upload means it was uploaded, right? TTS means it was text to speech. Recording means it was recorded over the phone. This column here, play, you can click on the little icon, and it will play back the greeting directly in your browser. And that this lets you know, this helps you determine if the file is still relevant or still needed. If for some reason that doesn't work, you also have the option to download the file. So you can download it to your computer or phone or what have you, and then use your own media player there to listen to it. Got the little wrench icon here. This allows you to change the name of a file. So like main open hours menu TTS, you can change to something. You can also get rid of the greeting. All right, numbers. Starts you off on numbers in use. This just shows you where you're using your numbers. You cannot unassign them here or assign them. Right? You can also get to the gear icon, so you can update the caller ID, E911, or prepend. Spare numbers. These are the numbers you're not currently using. So if you wanted to remove numbers from your account, this is where you would go. Well, first you would unassign them, and then you would come here. And if you keep your eyes up here where it says numbers, right, you click on the boxes in front of the numbers. And then you click delete. I want you to confirm. So you click delete numbers to confirm. And now I have less phone numbers on my account. Right, by numbers, add local or toll free. Again, just adds them as additional spare numbers. Port starts the port process. Yeah, you give it a name. You choose local or toll free. You click next. Now it wants you to upload a PDF copy of your bill. Then there's a form to fill out in terms of like your address and company name information that your current carrier has on file for you. It's going to ask you for things like the BTN, which is the billing telephone number, which if you're only porting one number, that phone number that you're porting is your BTN. Some carriers require a PIN number to port out. We typically see this with cell phone carriers as well as Canadian carriers, but some other carriers also require a PIN. This is typically something you have to call or to get from your current carrier. Some of them will have it on their invoice, right? They'll have a PIN number. So then that makes it easier for you, but other times you have to either call them or go through like their portal to get the PIN number. Then you can download a blank letter of agency or LOA and then upload a completed and signed LOA. Like the format in this process, the LOA wants like the company name and address that your current carrier has on file for you. It does require a signature. Now, that can be a digital signature file, that's fine, or we can be old school, print it out, sign it, and then scan it back in. Right? If you just type your name twice, it's gonna get rejected. If you print your name twice, it's gonna get rejected. And that rejection is from an automated system that we can't bypass. Generally speaking, toll-free numbers take about 1 week to complete the port process if everything's correct. Local numbers can range anywhere, but it averages about 2 to 3 weeks. If there's a problem, we get a rejection, we double check to make sure we didn't have a typo anywhere on our side, or if there's alternate information, like in the case of an address rejection, we double check the bill and the LOA to see if there's any differences. And if there is, then we use that alternate, right, to see if that will go through. If in the end we still can't get it to go through and we can't, see any obvious mistakes that we can correct, then we let you know. And basically that means you have to reach out to the current carrier to find out what the correct information that you need to get the number to port out. All right, voicemail boxes. Shows all your voicemail boxes on the account. Any voicemail box that has an entry under the user column here, that was a voicemail box that was created with the user, right, at the same time. But up here at the top, you can create new voicemail boxes, right, for use with any of your groups or call queues, for example. You give it a name, give it a voicemail box number and a PIN number, and then click on Create a Voicemail Box. And if we click on here, so here you see the main voicemail box, it has voicemail box 0, has this PIN number. So that's the information you would use to access the voicemails over the phone, or even change the greeting over the phone, right? Under Advanced Greeting Media, you can upload your own files, right? .mp3, .wav, under 1 megabyte. You can also choose from existing media files here. Now, the temporary file, that's for that vacation or out of office message. So if you have something selected in both media and temporary, the temporary file plays. That media file will not play again until you send temporary back to none, and then save changes. Recipients, your voicemail boxes that were created with the users have a built-in recipient, right? That email address used for login. But you can add additional recipients, and any voicemail box you create on this page, you'd probably want to add a recipient. You would just click here. It says Add New Recipient. You enter the email address. If you want to add more, you click Add to add the next email address you want to add. Once you're done, click on Save Changes. And then options. So once you have greeting media file in place and the recipients in place, put a check mark here in front of Already Set Up. And then you can double check if you want Delete After Notification enabled, and you want to attach emails to, or attach messages to email, and then save changes. Call logs shows your call history on the account, right? You have today, you have this week, and this month, as well as custom. A green arrow to the right is a call that came into the system. Right, you see the phone number it came from, you see where it went to. And here we can. Oh, here we go. So here you can see the calls came in and then what devices they went to. Right, so this first line here, that's the call coming into the system itself. And then the second line is to a device, right? If it's going to multiple devices, right, there would be additional lines for each device. Yellow arrow to the left is a call going out from the system. And let's see if I can find. And here you can see what device was being used and where they were going to. A little fire extinguisher icon. This will create an email for you, automatically address to support at VirtualPBX. It will include the technical details of the call. Please enter in the body of the email context, right? Some cases we can tell why you're sending in the email. Other cases we can't, right? So like if any call that has normal clearing, especially all the way through, that means as far as the system is concerned, the call ended normally, right? So just from the technical details, I'm probably not going to be able to understand why you would send it in. For instance, the call may have ended normally, but maybe you had bad audio, right? It was choppy or whatnot. That's not going to show up in the call log. So that's why you would need to type that into the email so our support team would know what to do. You can download these files as a CSV file. So again, if you're good with spreadsheets, you can get some more information. The custom tab lets you change the date range. Right, and again, so if you need to go further back, the system will let you go back up to 12 months. If you need to go back further, you actually need to contact our support team. Our engineers can go back up to 18 months, but after that, the data is no longer available, right? It's gone. If you need your call log data for some sort of compliance reasons, you would definitely want to do this on a monthly basis at the least. Feature codes, I've talked about a couple of these, right? These are ways for your VoIP phone users to access Dash features directly from their VoIP phone. This is a page under our support pages, right? There's also a document called the Phone Commands Cheat Sheet. It's a PDF. It has the feature codes, but it also has the context help of how to use it. All right, so that's the dashboard. Next up is blacklists. This is an included feature. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you're blocking from reaching your system. Right, so you would click on Edit Blacklist. You would click Add to create a new one, right, if you don't already have one. Otherwise, you can click on an existing list, right? You need to give it a name. First up, are you blocking anonymous or not, right? By default, this is off, meaning calls with invalid caller ID or hiding their caller ID will come through. In this case, I turned it on. So that means that those phone numbers, they get busy tone when they try to call in. Beyond that, you come down here where it says add number, put +1 area code and phone number of the phone numbers you want to block, right? No spaces, dashes, or parentheses. Keep clicking add until you're done. And then once you're done, click on save. Then click on back to settings up here at the top right. And then make sure your list is on the right-hand side under selected, right? You might have to click and drag. And then click update. So now any phone number on these two lists, if they try to call any of my company numbers, they get busy tone. Faxes, this takes you to your fax manager, right? So you can get to any fax box on the account, whether there's general sound, like the general account or a specific user. You see the date and time, the phone numbers involved, the number of pages. You can download the file. You can choose to delete the file as well. And the system will automatically wipe this after 30 days. I believe that's what I've seen in my testing. So this is the inbound fax tab, right? Outbound fax tab, same concept, find the fax box, right? Success, obviously means it went through. Failure means it didn't. Now, when you see a failure under the outbound fax tab, that means we had a problem with the other phone number. Now, it could be that phone number never picked up. It could be it did connect initially, but then something interrupted the transmission, right? So like old school fax machines, right? If it's receiving a fax and someone picks up the handset, that can disrupt that inbound transmission. So if you know the numbers are correct, right, you can just retry. Sometimes under this little details icon, you might get additional information, but normally, right, you get like success false or just failed up here at the top. Now, every now and then you'll see something like user busy, and that means each time we tried the phone number, it rang busy. The system will automatically try to send a fax out 3 times. So, and something to keep in mind, when you send a fax out, it takes time right? Just because you sent it off as an email, right? That means that initial transmission to us got to us very quickly, but we still have to convert that file, and then we have to end up sending it out via analog signal. So it takes time for a fax to get resolved. The email to fax logs, this shows you problems with the system having processing a request, right? So it never actually tried the other phone number. So you see the email address involved and the format. So you can say, okay, this is the correct format. Click the little eyeball icon here, and you say, oh, no valid attachment, which means they didn't attach a PDF or a TIFF file. Number manager, this takes you back to your spare number page. The reports, this takes you to, it opens a new tab, takes you to reports.virtualpbx.com. This is advanced reporting where you can create your own reports. If you look under the description box, there'll be a link there for the advanced reporting demo, because that will be able to better show you what the advanced reporting can do. If this is something you're interested in and it's not showing up on your account, then you definitely want to reach out to our account services team. Voicemails takes you to your voicemail box manager. So you can get to any voicemail box on the account and you can check the voicemail box, right? So that way, like if someone's sent their voicemail box is full, you can come in and take a look at it. So you see the date and time involved, phone numbers, the duration of the calls. You can play them back. You can download them. If you click on the box here, you can move a voicemail to a different voicemail box, as well as change its status. Right, so you can get rid of them if this one is full. Call center. This opens up a new tab, takes you to callcenter.virtualpbx.com. This is for ACD queues, right? Automatic call distribution. Under the description notes, you want to look at the ACD Queues Pro demo link, and that will go through the advantages or how the queues work. Basically, the call center is an advanced version of groups, right? So groups, you can like ring them all or ring in a certain order. In call center, you can have routing options like most idle, right? Whoever's been waiting the longest gets the next call, right? Round robin will equalize out over time. You can have like most call or least calls, or least connected calls, etc. So the call center is an add-on to existing plans. So you definitely need to talk to our account services team if you're interested in this. Dynamic caller ID, plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID of your VoIP phones. So if you click here, I'm going to edit an existing field, right? You give it a name. You choose a phone number on your account from this pull down. And then in this case, right, I'm saying whenever my staff members dial a 408 area code phone number from their VoIP phones, the system will automatically change their outbound call ID to this 669 phone number. Right? 669 is an overlay for their 408 area code. Likewise, over here, this I said, this is for LA area. I chose a 323 phone number, which is one of the area codes for the Los Angeles area. And what I'm saying is my staff members need to dial *550 first on their phone. And when they do that, the system will automatically change their outbound call ID to this 323 phone number. Monitor is another plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your staff members. Right, so green means they're available. If they're on a call, the bar will be blue, and you'll see some more details about the call. You can go search by devices. Right, you can see who's available or who's busy. Over here, you have active inbound calls, so each one would have a blue box and who they're talking to among your staff, and you would see the phone number involved. Parked calls, if anyone has made use of the parking feature and parked a call, then that phone number will show up here and their parking spot number. Recording Manager, this will open up a new tab and take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. You'll need your dash login to log into that page, and then you can see your call recordings. right? So you can see, you can like review the call recordings, you listen to them, download them, or delete them. Webhooks is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to link your Dash account to other software. So you would click on a new webhook. This is some level of programming. So might be, in my opinion, probably beyond most people, but there are people who make use of this quite extensively. Under the show notes, you want to look at the Introduction to Zapier webinar. Zapier is one of the key things people do link to because it allows them to link then to multiple other things. You'd actually want to talk to our sales team if you're interested in this. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample code of what we have done in terms of linking Dash to other software. And then we have the user portal. Every user on your account has their own user portal, right? It defaults them to their voicemail tab. Now, if for some reason you have a user that you set up to delete the voicemails after notification, nothing will show up here for them, right? But this, obviously, I haven't done that on this user, so I can listen to my voicemails here, right? Over here on the far right, I can download it. I can put a check mark here to change its status. Call history, I can see my call history. I can change the date range, so I can see the calls. Again, I can go back up to 1 year. The fax tab only works for users that have their own fax box. So I don't, so that's why nothing shows up here. But if I did, I could see my fax history. Contact list, this allows me to see all the contacts within my Dash account, right? So I can see other users, extensions, auto attendants, groups, etc. So I could transfer calls more easily. This is not something I can really edit, right? I can change the order that it's currently viewing, right? By like clicking on the name, right? Or the number, etc. But I can't add to it. Like I can't add my mom's contact here, for instance. Conference tab. This will, again, only apply to users that you've enabled conferencing on. Over here on the right, this is where they would adjust their PIN numbers, right? Both for themselves as the moderator and for anyone who's a participant. They can also choose to have people join muted or deafened, as well as play entry and exit tones. While they're in a conference, this plus sign means you can invite other Dash users straight to your conference. You can lock the conference so other people cannot join. You can mute everybody, unmute everybody, or you can end the call. Likewise, when people are in the conference, right, each moderator and participant gets their own little box. So you can mute a specific person as well as kick out a specific person. And then the settings and devices tab. So right here is where your staff members can enable call forwarding on their own. Right, they just put a check mark here, put in the phone number they want to forward to, +1, area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. Then choose if they want to keep the original caller ID, send an email, etc. And then they will press save when they're done. Right, so right now I'm forwarding, or I uncheck it to end the forward. And that is everything. Let me go back to the dashboard. So I haven't seen any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. I thank you for your time today. We'll be back next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. Basically for sure up through 4th of July. 4th of July, we will not be having a training just because the office will be closed. Again, thank you for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful day.